Hey everyone, I'm Nicole Arcello and welcome back to In Behalf of Animals. The response to the start of our second season and our last episode has been amazing. Thank you all so much for reaching out, for sharing. It's just been so inspiring to see like-minded people connect and share their thoughts and feel like they have a space to be themselves. That's exactly what I hope this podcast can be. A place to feel like you belong, to explore, reflect, and find some inspiration together. I also wanted to let you know that we've started a Substack as a companion to the podcast. There, I'll expand on an episode with visuals, links, and more information on the topics we cover. I'll also share personal reflections and even some vegan recipes. I'll put a link in the show notes, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there in the comments so we can connect. And just a reminder, even though we cover heavy topics here, I will always try to leave you with a sense of hope. And yes, even ways to find joy. And speaking of which, I think you're really going to enjoy our new segment at the end of today's episode. So today I'm chatting with Suzanne Gonzalez from Pennsylvania Voters for Animals about backyard eggs. Chickens, more specifically. It's an eye-opening conversation. So let's dive in. Hi, Suzanne. Welcome to In Behalf of Animals.
Hey, Nicole. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy you're here with me today. I love your work you're doing, and I'm so excited you can join us for today's episode. So Pennsylvania Voters for Animals is doing such great work in such a short period of time, and I definitely want to talk about that a little bit later. But first, let's focus on this important topic that you've been raising awareness about, backyard chickens. Now, I saw you just a little over a week ago at the Compassion for Animals and Environment Conference at Bucks County Community College in Newtown, Pennsylvania. And I have to say, as soon as I saw you were speaking on this topic, I reached out right away, I think in August, right? And I wanted to invite you on the show.
Mhm.
And I'm glad we waited till after your presentation because there was so much I didn't know or maybe just wasn't aware of. And I think our listeners will learn a lot too. So maybe I'm just going to throw a few things out there. Maybe it's because the egg prices are so high. We keep hearing about that, right? For well over a year now.
Mm.
Maybe people are keeping chickens in their backyards as a kinder alternative to factory farming, but there's a lot more to this story. So, can you start by sharing what life is like for chickens in the commercial egg industry?
Sure. I'm so happy, first of all, to have this opportunity to share what I've actually learned over the past 10 years or so. I think that's really important to share with your community, with your listeners,
Absolutely.
that I am not a veterinarian. I also have never kept chickens in my backyard. So everything that I've learned is actually through reading, informing myself, and also experiences that I've had over the past 10 years with work that I've done in rescuing farmed animals, bearing witness to what um, chickens in particular, that's the focus of our discussion today,
Hmm.
what life is like for them living in, this commercial egg production environment. And so through, bearing witness, rescue work, I felt it was incumbent upon me to really understand what are they going through? What is life like for a chicken confined within the commercial egg industry?
Right.
So, we can talk over the next, hour or so
Mm.
about just some of the statistics currently within the US egg industry, which I found really just shocking for me, just the sheer numbers.
Yeah,
We
I
can
did too.
also, yeah, I was really surprised. We can also talk about, and most importantly, the who, as you had mentioned, like who, what is it like for the chickens? So
Yeah.
really talking about, you know, who is
Mhm.
the who is the victim, if you will, behind this egg industry.
Right.
And then we can take a deep dive into the backyard, what is like for chickens living in backyard egg production.
Right.
So, first and foremost, I do get my information, actually, a lot of it from the the US egg producers themselves.
Yeah.
Because I find, we need to go to the source to get information. So for US egg production in 2024, there were actually 93.1 billion eggs produced in the US alone. So I'm going to say
Mm.
it again, 93.1 billion eggs produced
Right.
in
Billion with a
2024.
B. Mm.
Billion with a B.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually down 1% from 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk a little bit about the why. Why is it down?
Yeah.
There were also 311 million commercial table egg laying hens at the end of 2024. And this is down too from 2023, about 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we would say to ourselves, like, oh, maybe people are starting to realize, like, oh, I don't need to consume eggs from chickens
Right.
to, maintain my quality of life or health and well being.
Mm.
But that's not the reason why. The reason why egg production was down and the number of eggs were down in 2024 over 2023 is because of the bird flu. I think
Right.
we've all heard about, bird flu and how it is impacting not only our wild birds, but also birds that are kept by by animal agriculture.
Right.
Also cows, or the dairy herds were impacted by bird flu, and
Mm-hmm.
humans as well. Humans can be impacted, but the decline in the number of eggs produced in 2024 and the number of hens actually um, kept within the egg industry or by the egg industry, it was down because of bird flu.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, in 2024, 20 million um, hens were killed or chickens were killed because of bird flu, and that was a mass euthanasia or killing of these animals.
Right.
10 million of that 20 million were actually chickens that were used by the egg industry.
Mm.
So that explains the decline in the sheer numbers of hens
Right.
in 2024.
It's awful.
On average, a hen, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but on average, a hen used by the egg industry will produce about 301 eggs per year. And I do want to talk a little bit more about like comparing um, a a wild hen in nature, what they produce and as per the number of eggs, and compare that to, what it looks like compared to like the hens that are used by the egg industry.
Right.
So in nature today, we actually have a close relative to the domesticated chickens, and they're called the red jungle fowl, and they can be found in Southeast Asia. And on average, they produce about 12 eggs per year. So they'll have like two clutches of eggs. So like 4 to 6 eggs per clutch. It's usually like seasonal. So similar to what we see, in our bird friends outside,
Right.
robins and, blue jays, etc. These red jungle fowl, they lay about 12 eggs per year.
Right.
So when we look at the domesticated hens who humans for hundreds, if not thousands of years
Mm.
have been using, we say domesticated, but essentially we're using them
Right.
over the centuries or the millennia, they've selectively bred these hens to produce more
Mm.
and more eggs. And it really took hold in the early 1900s, where hens were producing about 120 eggs per year. So you think about like you divide it over a month, like maybe 10 eggs a month.
Right.
It really took hold after World War I and World War II, where the egg industry, as well as our government, started looking at, hey, you know what, we're onto something here. We can actually incentivize farmers to selectively breed hens to produce more and more eggs.
Right.
So you see this tremendous jump in the number of eggs produced by hens that are used within the commercial egg industry from like early 1900s, like 120, as I mentioned,
Mm.
to now 300 eggs per year. So you can just imagine for the hen who in nature would be producing 12 eggs per year
Right.
to now the hens used within the commercial egg industry producing 300 eggs per year.
Right. Another unnatural thing that, that we force animals to do through domesticating them, using them, exploiting them.
100%,
Mhm.
Nicole. And what I found also so interesting, or actually oh, so sad, is I found a chart put out by um, the United Egg Industry, and they represent about 90% of all of the egg producers in the United States. And if you look at this one graph, and it was starting in 2004, comparing to 2024, so in a 20-year period, in 2004, a hen would lay about 266 eggs per year.
Mm.
Fast forward 20 years, and the hens today, as I mentioned, are laying on average 301 eggs per year. So within a 20-year span, that's a 13.2% increase, or about 3 dozen more eggs per year.
Right.
So
And the industry's
we're
celebrating this, right? This is like good news for them,
exactly.
but horrible
Yeah.
news for the chickens.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
so, as I shared, doing this work
Mhm.
myself, looking at, these statistics put out by the industry, when I looked at this graph, I looked at it in horror, because I thought
Mhm.
this represents, increased egg production means increased suffering, increased, issues that we'll talk about in a minute or two.
Right.
But for the industry, it's, "Hey, we're doing more with less."
Right.
So that's an increase in their profit margins, when we look at it as that's an increase in suffering.
Right.
So then as we go through, we start thinking about what is it like for a hen within the US commercial egg production industry.
Mm.
And right now, when I started looking at where are the hens kept? Where are they housed?
Right.
And so what I found, and again put out by the United Egg Producers, representing 90% of the US production industry,
Mhm.
60.5% of all hens, so that's about 184 million hens
Mm.
used by the egg industry, are housed within conventional, AKA factory farms, AKA battery cages.
Right.
So the majority of hens are still kept within factory farms and confined within those battery cages. And for people that don't know what a battery cage is, you can certainly look it up. I recommend people doing their own, finding their own information, to confirm everything that I'm saying. But
Yeah. Well, and we'll
it
put some on our Substack. We'll follow this episode up with a little more information. Some of the videos you had, if you could share, because they're
that's
so
awesome.
powerful. That would be great.
Yeah. And so they are actually kept in these cages, where inside that cage, each hen has about a letter-sized piece of paper to spend every minute of their confinement within that cage. And it's not just one hen per cage, it is multiple hens per cage.
So for a
And
visual, you're saying one piece of paper is the bottom of their cage, right?
exactly.
And then
Yeah,
the rest of it's just very close around their bodies. So they don't have a
exactly.
space to do anything that they
Yeah.
would naturally do, just for a
It
visual.
100%. They have,
Mhm.
typically a hen in a natural setting would, they love to dust bathe. They want to flap their wings.
Mhm.
They actually love to, forage and just be with their friends and
Mhm.
be outside. And in a battery cage, there's none of that. They are literally there to produce eggs.
Right.
And so they live a life of just intensive confinement.
Right.
And so about almost a little less than 40% of the hens used by the egg industry are in what's called total cage free. So what does that mean? About 6.7, almost 7% of the hens used or, by the egg industry that are considered cage free would be in, like, say, an organic farm.
Right.
So organic farms, typically the hens would not be kept in cages. Um, but they also would not be fed like antibiotics or GMO, grains or, feed. They also would be, really kept from just like, chemicals or growth hormones, etc. Um, the rest are, a cage free environment. It doesn't necessarily mean cruelty free.
Right.
Some of those, hens that are kept in cage-free environments are actually housed in these giant barns or warehouses where they too are intensively confined.
Right.
They just they're not in a cage. And that's literally what cage-free means.
Right. They're in
Cage.
but they're still in tight quarters in these sheds and
Yeah.
these warehouses,
Yes.
and they still can't do those natural instincts. And
Yes.
then, it's just so awful. And, in my previous life working in salons, a lot of my customers would say, "Well, I only buy cage-free or organic and or local eggs," and it's all the same.
It is
And
all the
people
same.
just don't realize it's just marketing.
It is absolutely marketing, and, for people that buy, as you had just mentioned, like pasture raised or free range,
Mhm.
it literally means, there's very few regulations around, these labels, with the exception of organic. I do wanna make that clear.
Mhm.
There are criteria, for an organic label, but pasture raised and, free range literally means that the hens should have access to outside.
Right.
It does not mean that they're going outside, so it is a label that people are, they do their it eases their conscience when they are buying these eggs. So,
Perfectly
um,
said.
and what's really
Mhm.
interesting, or at least to me, when I was, doing this fact gathering, the industry, so the egg producing industry, are actually moving towards more of the cage-free environment, and it's not because they really care about the welfare of, the chickens exploited by the egg industry. They know that people will pay more for a humane label.
Right.
So they are really, advocating that egg producers do move to a more, um, cage-free type environment, and it is
Right.
for, as you said, it's for marketing purposes.
Right. It's for their benefit and not the
It
chickens.
absolutely is.
Mhm.
So, if you agree, I'm happy to talk about now, as you had said at the beginning, like
Mm.
who 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 is behind the egg industry? Who
Yeah.
are the individuals? Because we do look at them as individuals who
Yeah.
are being, basically exploited
Yeah,
within
that's
the
why
egg
we're here.
industry.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
So it all starts with breeding parents. So,
Mhm.
the hens that are used by the egg industry to, for egg production, they had parents.
Right.
And so the parents start out as chicks and they are raised purposely to become breeders of future hens to be used by the egg industry.
Mhm.
So the little chicks, once they're hatched, they are actually debeaked. And for people that don't know what debeaking is, it literally is a partial amputation of
Mm.
the little chick's beak.
Awful.
And it's done without any type of anesthesia or pain relief.
Mhm.
And it is done not because, they don't want the chicks to hurt themselves per se, or it's done, to help the chick. It's actually done because they want to protect their products. And so chicks under, I was going to say under this life of just captivity and, exploitation, oppression, just undergoing this debeaking process, chicks have actually just died from the stress of
Mm.
undergoing debeaking. Or chicks who do survive the debeaking process, they actually could starve or they can die of dehydration because it is so painful for them
Right.
after their beaks are partially amputated. The reason the industry does it is because they do want to stop any potential injury that one hen or the rooster could do to
Mhm.
another, hen or other roosters. It also is done because they want to prevent self-mutilation, and it's also done because under these stressful conditions, hens and roosters will actually cannibalize each other. So this is all documented, it's all fact, and
Mhm.
but the industry is not doing this because, oh, it's a good thing to do for the chicks. It's actually good to protect their
Their
products.
assets or products, right.
Absolutely, their
Mhm.
profit margins.
Right.
So the other thing that routinely the parents who, of the future laying hens, they're also vaccinated because there are so many viruses and, bacterial infections that can, again, impact the chickens and then impact egg production
Mhm.
down the line. So immediately they're debeaked, they're vaccinated. They are then kept until they're about 20 to 22 weeks of age, and then they're sent to breeder farms. And these breeder farms are basically giant warehouses where hundreds and hundreds of hens and roosters are kept together for the sole purpose of mating to produce fertilized eggs.
Mm.
So those chicks then, they will be sexed, and we'll talk about that in a
Yeah.
minute. But the purpose of keeping the breeder parents in these breeding farms or on these breeding farms is to produce future hens that would be
Mm.
used within the egg industry. So, what life is like for a hen confined in these on these breeder farms, she cannot defend herself at
Mm.
all against either other hens or mostly from the roosters.
Right.
He is completely at the mercy of, those conditions. She will be repeatedly bred. There's no escaping, no defending themselves. And the industry recognizes that this is such a stressful environment for both the male and female chickens that they consider these breeder parents spent
Mm.
at around 65 weeks of age. So
Wow.
I haven't mentioned it yet, but I will, throughout our talk.
Mhm.
But a hen or chickens actually can live anywhere from 6 to 8 years of
Right.
age. So when these breeding parents are determined spent, which is about 65 weeks or about 15 months old,
Right.
they're literally still babies themselves, and they
Mhm.
are considered spent, and they will then be sent to slaughter.
Awesome.
So,
You know
uh,
what? I just to when you're talking about the breeder parents, it reminds me of puppy mills for dogs, right? And so many people now are aware of puppy mills and what the parents go through and but the same thing is happening. It seems to me, it feels like the same. It sounds like the same story is happening to these chickens, and people are buying eggs, and I think if they could put those pieces together, they wouldn't do that, you know? It's like educating people, like, it reminds me of that, and it's my frustration as a vegan and animal rights activist that people don't see those chickens the same as dogs, but
That's
anyway.
such a great point, Nicole. And to, further your point, the USDA actually, has oversight of puppy mills. So you
Mm,
think about it, it also is part of animal agriculture,
right,
puppy
right, right,
mills and this as well. So that's an
right,
excellent point.
right.
Absolutely. So, the sad thing too, more sad things to share, but
But it's the
in
truth, and that's
nature, it is
important.
the truth, and
Mhm.
that is such an important point to make, that
Right,
it is all true. It is unassailable truth,
right.
and
And we
so
have to be armed with that truth to advocate.
we do have to be armed with it. And the sad reality is, in nature, so going back to our friend, the red jungle fowl,
Mm,
she would a mom hen would have, she'd lay her eggs, she would safeguard her eggs, she would
mhm.
talk to her eggs, she
Right.
would this would be every part of her life is around
Mhm.
protecting those eggs, turning the eggs and ensuring that those eggs hatch naturally and that she would then nurture her babies.
Right.
Well, in life within the egg industry for these, the hens, the breeding hens,
Mhm.
for the roosters, they don't have any of that. There's none of that. Those fertilized eggs that were produced within the confines of that breeding farm, they are immediately taken away from those hens.
Right,
Because again, it's precious cargo. They
right.
do not want anything to happen to those fertilized eggs. So those eggs are
Mhm.
gathered up and then they are actually taken to hatcheries
Mhm.
and kept in those hatcheries. And on average, in the US, there are 600 million chicks hatched annually for egg production alone. 600 million. So they are, as I shared, the little chicks that come from those breeding parents, again, all for the egg industry. They're denied the care, the warmth, and the protection of their mothers. And instead, they were incubated in metal drawers, in these
Mhm.
warm environments, but absolutely cold.
Mhm.
They would hear in nature, they would hear their mom vocalizing to them while they're still in their eggs. When they hatch, they would recognize their mom's vocalizations. The only sound they hear in these incubators
Mm.
are the sound of machinery.
Right.
After 21 days, the little chicks will actually peck their way out of the shells. They are then jostled on machines, roughly handled, sorted, and
Mm.
then sexed. And we'll talk a little bit more about what
Oh,
that looks like.
please do,
Yeah.
because that was very
Yeah.
interesting.
And they will then be separated into males and females, and then they're tossed onto conveyor belts towards their next destination. And let's talk about the males.
Mm.
So, the life of a male chick in the egg industry, as we said, 600 million eggs are hatched
Right.
every year in the US. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? 300 million of those are
Oh.
male chicks.
Mhm.
And the egg industry considers them byproducts because a male chick or a rooster cannot
Right,
lay eggs.
right.
So they have no purpose. So over 300 million chicks are killed every year in the US alone. And I'll talk a little bit about how are they killed. The male chicks, so they hatch, they're sexed,
Mhm.
determined to be male, and then most are macerated. And what that means is the
Mhm.
little chicks who are just hours old are actually sent on conveyor belts into these grinding machines. So they are literally, they are ground up alive.
Alive. Pure
They
evil.
Some are gas,
Mm,
using, CO2.
mhm,
Some are suffocated. They'll actually be thrown out in trash bags,
mm,
and in those plastic trash bags, they suffocate. And then some are killed by what's called cervical dislocation or having their necks broken.
mm.
And this is all, as you said, this is all the truth.
Right,
And this is what we are supporting,
right.
when we buy eggs. In 2016, the United Egg Producers, which again was the organization that represents over 90% of the egg producers in the United States,
Mm,
they set a goal of eliminating the culling, or that's a euphemism used, killing
mm,
of day-old male chicks by 2020, or as soon as it is commercially available and economically feasible. So the question is,
mm.
was it implemented? We're in 2025.
Right,
Well, not exactly.
right,
The solution for the no kill, stop killing male chicks is
right,
called in ovo sexing. And I'm sure many people have heard of this. And
right.
this is what the industry is saying. This is, the no kill solution, will stop killing male chicks. Well, in ovo sexing actually determines the sex of chicken embryos inside the fertilized eggs. Remember, breeder parents, they're mating, they're producing fertilized eggs. Those eggs are gathered and then they go to hatcheries, and this is where the whole process begins.
Right.
So, taking those fertilized eggs, they go through this sexing process, and the industry said, okay, this is the answer. In ovosexing, we're going to be able to determine the sex of the chicken embryo before they even hatch. So, between the ages of day 4 to 13 of the incubation period or the incubation cycle, the eggs are scanned, and there's various technologies that can be used, and during the scanning period, they're sexed. So they would take the female eggs and they would go back into the incubators until they're hatched. And that's, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Right.
But the male eggs, then, instead of, waiting for them to hatch on their own, those male eggs are crushed
Mm,
and processed into animal feed, pet food, or protein powder. So, yes, the industry, the egg producers are looking at this as a more humane alternative because, there's speculation that during that days 4 to 13, that the pain receptors in the chicken embryos aren't fully developed. So this is a less painful approach to this,
uh,
you know, sexing.
right.
So this is their proposed solution. So
Do you think
the
that, sorry,
yeah.
real quick, do you think that they decided to change that because of animal activists?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
I was wondering about that.
I do think there's pressure. However, I did find an interesting survey, and it was only 11% of U.S. consumers even know that male chick culling is a standard
Oh,
practice.
good. You have that
So,
data,
it
so
is,
that's great to know
yeah.
because I'm
So
wondering why they would do that, you know?
I'm sure that so the other thing to consider is a lot of this is driven outside of the US. So,
Right,
the European countries have actually done away with the male chick killing,
right.
and they've adopted this in ovo
Mm,
sexing. So Germany, France, and Austria have already banned male chick killing. I'm not going to say culling; I'll say killing.
right.
And Italy is another country that will soon be banning male chick killing. The U.S. is lagging,
Always,
always lagging.
always.
So
Yep.
it is a great question. Is it activism? Probably.
Mm,
Um, do consumers outside of the U.S. know more? Yes, I think they do.
right.
I think it is more freely reported on.
Right.
But yes, so we're behind. We're way behind. But I guess my
Mm,
question would be, is it really more humane?
right.
You know, we're
Right.
crushing the male chicks
Right.
within their egg. The industry
And then they
thinks it
found a
is.
better maybe they found a better byproduct out of it too. If they're
Yeah,
the protein powder threw me.
yeah,
I was like, "What? Protein
yeah,
powder? How do they label that?" I don't want us to go off topic, but I'm thinking, how do they label that? Like
yeah,
crushed male chick embryo
yeah,
in your protein? It's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, it's
Mm,
amazing though how they can, how they just can market everything, anything
right.
and everything.
They'll use
But
every little piece of and every animal
they
to profit on.
absolutely,
It's
oh my
pure evil.
gosh, that is so, oh my gosh. But the egg producers use comforting labels and welfare promises like no kill eggs, coal-free eggs, humane eggs. And they know that consumers will buy. They
Right.
will buy because again, it's, easing consumers' conscience.
And
So,
and being vegan so long, I haven't looked at a carton of eggs or in the egg section in forever, so I was surprised to hear those labels on eggs.
mhm,
And I was like,
yeah,
I've never so I was like, I wanna go over and look, and then but I can't. I just can't do it, but
yeah.
I was surprised at the labeling, how much it's changed. When you're vegan for so long or, sometimes this is a good refresher for longtime vegans, but also a lot of new information here too.
It really is, Nicole, to your point, like, I haven't, like you said, I don't even look at
Mm,
the egg aisle, I just stay away
right.
from it. But, um but it is interesting to know that, these companies, they're all over this. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
yes, they're not moving to the in ovo sexing because obviously if only 11% of US consumers know that
Right.
chick killing is even a thing, so there's no impetus for them to
Right.
really move forward. My question is, and it's really more, I think of philosophical or ethical, is
Right.
would anyone consider in ovo sexing a humane alternative to
No.
chick killing?
No.
Because I don't.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
It sounds just as awful, and
Yeah. Yeah. It's just heartbreaking, but
it is.
so now, like, moving on to, like, thinking about, okay, now that her brother was now, either thrown into a macerator and
Right.
ground up, or her, brother was crushed before he even hatched.
Mm,
The, little female hen, the little, chick, now what is it like for her? So um, they then continue their way, on the conveyor belts, and, they are also then, like their parents, debeaked and vaccinated. No pain relief, no anesthesia used, no anesthetics used, just, go through this horrendous process.
right.
They are then the little babies are, put into boxes and they are transported to what's called grow out facilities.
Mm,
They'll remain there for approximately 18 weeks. And then once they reach their targeted body weight, which is about, depending on the breed of the hen, usually around 3.5 to 4 pounds, they will be moved to lay houses. And this is where we talked about that 60.5% is a factory farm and living in battery cages.
right.
They will typically have a 12 to 18 month production cycle.
Mhm.
In the industry, so in the commercial egg industry, typically once a hen, or actually, they're called pullets, once they begin to reach sexual maturity and start laying eggs,
Mm,
by 12 months to no more than 18 months, they've reached their peak egg production. So, once they reach that peak egg production, like their parents, like their brothers, they
mhm.
will be sent to slaughter.
Right.
Um, a hen in the egg production, industry typically lays about an egg every 25 to 27 hours. So
Wow.
thinking about that, like just thinking about what it would be like to lay an egg almost every single day of your life,
Mhm.
it is unimaginable what that is doing to her body,
Right.
to her existence. But
All the
that's what
while
we've done. Yep.
right, all the while confined,
Yes.
suffering, being trampled on if they're in the cage-free. Remember, that's cage-free doesn't mean anything. Um, breathing in horrible air, being a fighting with other chickens. I mean, this is just and then in the cage, it's different suffering, just
Yeah.
another kind of suffering.
It
And
it
then
truly is.
mm,
It truly is. And so and for all of us that like remember a chicken can live
mhm,
between 6 to 8 years. I mean, some live longer,
right,
but on average, a chicken can live 6 to 8 years.
right.
Within the egg industry, already the males are they're
They're gone.
gone,
Mhm,
but a hen will be sent to slaughter if she survives those conditions at around 15 to 18 months of age.
wow.
So, thinking about what we just talked about,
Mhm,
that every 25 to 27 hours, she's laying an egg, which she has no control over. Just
right.
this is what we've done. We've selectively bred these, chickens to lay 301 eggs per year. So, what happens to her body? So, the hens suffer actually from a host of crippling disorders of the most often the reproductive tract, many of which are fatal. So, these include egg binding, which I'm sure many people have heard if they're familiar with hens
Mhm,
that, oh, my hen is egg bound. And it literally means that she cannot lay that egg. So it's literally stuck within her reproductive tract.
mm,
It can be fatal. Um, Vent prolapse, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but essentially what that means is that her reproductive tract is actually coming out of her vent.
mhm,
So, it just from that excessive laying and laying over and over,
right.
the vent actually will come out of her body. Again, another, potentially fatal situation. So you can imagine if she has vent prolapse in a battery cage, do you think anybody's coming to help her?
No.
No,
No, there's no veterinary care, there's nobody walking
no,
around checking on them, talking to them, doing
mm-mm,
anything
no.
soothing for them. Mhm,
There's not. There's not. And they also, are prone to developing, tumors of the, oviduct or which is the reproductive tract, and many times those tumors are cancerous. So, of
mm,
course, then they're, fatal.
right.
Um, there's also something else called egg yolk peritonitis, where the egg actually breaks within the hen's reproductive system. The infection can affect their abdominal cavities. There's inflammation, infection, and without treatment, it is most often fatal. And then what it was actually so surprising to me is that hens can develop osteoporosis. We often
Mm,
all hear about women developing, and men as well, but we develop or have the propensity to develop osteopenia or osteoporosis. These hens, because of the high metabolic demands of this excessive egg laying, they actually develop osteoporosis. So even at 15 months of age, 18 months of age, they have osteoporosis and they develop accompanying bone fractures. Even in confinement in these battery cages where they're not able to move around, they're still breaking bones.
right.
So, this is what we've done with our selective breeding because we as consumers, we have to have eggs.
Right.
The sad reality, even more heartbreaking, is that even when hens are rescued by farmed animal sanctuaries or, these micro sanctuaries, they can't be saved. These issues are, they're just because of the selective breeding, the overbreeding, they're genetically predisposed to so many of these conditions that even with the best avian vet care, many times there's no saving the hens from these conditions.
Awful.
So what happens to a hen when they can no longer produce eggs? So again, we're focused, as you said from the outset of this, discussion, it's, life in a commercial egg industry. And so what happens to the hen once she can no longer produce eggs? As I shared earlier, within that first year to 2 years, but in the egg industry, it's usually between 15 to 18 months of age when she is already peaked in her egg production. She will be considered spent, just like her mom and dad, who were, considered spent at 65 weeks of age and sent to slaughter. A hen that is confined within the egg industry, she is considered spent at around 15 to 18 months of age, and she will be sent to slaughter. The smaller egg producers may kill hens by gassing them with CO2 to asphyxiate them. There's other methods that they will use, which I will not go into. And typically on the smaller farms, and if you see a picture of or a photo of a hen who is considered spent, and I'm sure everyone who listens has seen a photo of a hen who was rescued from the egg industry.
Right.
They are absolute nothing but, skin, bones, hardly have any feathers. And the most important thing to remember is these chickens, these hens used by the egg industry, their energy is not used to build muscle. Their energy is used to lay eggs.
Right.
So by the time they've reached peak egg production, they're 15 to 18 months of age, they are literally skin and bones. So, they serve no purpose for human consumption. They will be many times in the smaller egg producers, they're just going to dump them in landfills, they'll compost their bodies.
Right.
In the larger commercial egg industry, the larger egg producers, they use, especially for the cage free, and I, would use air quotes, the cage free, they'll use something called catch, carry, crate. They'll actually bring companies in who they come in. So think about like a giant warehouse with all these hens that these cage-free environments, hundreds and upon hundreds. How do you get them out of that warehouse? So literally, they will come in. They do this whole process at one time. They'll just catch, carry, crate, and they will send those hens to slaughter. They will then be their bodies will be rendered for pet food or animal feed products.
Right.
So that is the
one less profit.
Exactly.
Industry.
Exactly. So, Nicole, before we start talking about backyard egg production, do you have any questions, that you'd like to
No,
pose now?
I think that you covered everything so perfectly, and I'm happy that you went in so deep into the factory farms for eggs, because it's so important when you talk about what you're going to talk about next, backyard chickens.
Thank you. Yes, it is so important to just lay the groundwork because again, as you said, this is the truth. This is all this is the unassailable truth of
And you need to know that going in. Now,
Exactly.
because we don't want this to, but we need to educate on the well, go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah, I,
'Cause I
so,
think people think it's just so benign and it's okay to do, and
yeah.
it's just not.
So transitioning to what I had, when I did present this at the Compassion for Animals and the Environment conference, my title was the Untold Truth Backyard Chickens. And
Right.
so, we think of this like, oh, I have chickens in my backyard. I'm using them, for eggs. And you do think of this as like, just this beautiful alternative
Right.
to, factory farming and, beautiful coops and grass and, outside for some chickens, maybe it is, this is kind of how they live their life for a short period of time, but it's not the reality, and
Mhm.
that's what we're gonna talk about,
Right.
for most. So backyard egg production is becoming more popular, and I do use the term backyard egg production because to differentiate from factory farming.
Right.
Um, Backyard, it could be somebody in the city, is keeping chickens for eggs, or it could be someone with 3 acres or 5 acres that have, chickens as well.
Right.
All different environments, all different, looks and the feels of what that backyard egg production looks like, but at the end of the day, people are interested. It's becoming more popular because of, increasing, egg prices and also lack of availability. Going back to what we just talked about a little bit ago about how egg production declined 1% in
Right.
2024, and that, there were less hens because of bird flu.
Yeah, and
So
they were rationing eggs. I think I saw it
yeah,
like Trader Joe's and different, 1 per customer, 1 dozen, I guess, per customer.
yeah.
I saw things like that and, yeah.
And it even goes back further than, bird flu because, egg production declined during COVID, which
Right.
we really didn't talk about, but,
Mhm.
so this has been, a sustained issue that people haven't been able to get to their eggs, buy
Right.
their eggs. So it has really, contributed, and we'll talk a little bit about, like, the number of households keeping, chickens for
Right.
egg production in their backyard in a minute, but the other thing it gives people is this, sense of control over the source of eggs for consumption.
Right.
It also, as we had touched upon, upholds personal or cultural beliefs that keeping hens for eggs in backyard coops, it's a humane alternative to factory farmed eggs, and that it also minimizes suffering and ensures higher welfare standards.
Mhm.
It also, which I found really interesting, is it does foster a sense of community. People that do keep backyard eggs, and I will share my neighbors actually have kept chickens in their backyard for eggs. And I do see neighbors coming over and it's like sharing eggs. And wow, this is, it's just
Mm.
an opportunity, for community building.
Right.
Sadly, it's, at the expense of these individuals. And we'll talk more about that. But
Right.
so it does build relationships. It builds relationships not only within the neighborhood or within the community, but it also builds relationships with other people who are keeping chickens in their
Mhm.
backyards.
Right.
So that said, let's just talk about where did the hens come from?
Mm.
So, where are people getting the hens that they're
Right.
keeping in their backyards for egg production? Well, they're the chicks are sourced from the same hatcheries as commercial egg producers.
Right.
Um, Backyard egg producers, they can order chicks, hens, baby hens from mail order. They can also go to farm supply stores and go in and buy their little hens. To use for backyard egg production. However, we have to keep in mind, they're all coming from the same
Right.
hatcheries. And so the newly hatched females, as I mentioned, they're called pullets, are packed and shipped via the post office. So the little baby chicks they are packed up and actually shipped. Um, it could be 24, 72 hours or longer. They are without food, they are without water, they are in um, temperatures that are not controlled. So it could be excessive heat, it could be excessive cold. About 10% of those babies die in transport
Mm.
or in transit. And we have to remember that every one of those chicks came from tormented breeder parents.
Right.
So it's all the same system.
Right.
They're all coming from the same oppressive and exploitative systems. So, what is the real cost of egg production? We might be asking ourselves at this point, or backyard egg production, should clarify.
Right.
Today, about 12 million US households keep backyard chickens, and
Wow.
that's actually up. So, thinking back to
That's crazy.
just talked about,
Mm.
that's up 28% from
Wow.
2023. So, yes, we've had a decline in eggs produced
Right.
in 2024 over 2023. We've had a decline in the number of hens that were actually survived to the end of 2024 over 2023. But we've had a 28% increase in the number of households that are keeping backyard chickens. So, are there any differences? Actually, there's not. So we know
Right.
they're coming from the same hatcheries. The hens that are kept in your backyard for backyard egg production, they have the same health and welfare issues.
Right.
They suffer from diseases, they have parasites, they have the reproductive issues we touched upon. They have other issues that commonly occur. They have injuries. They have something called bumblefoot, where they actually get these wounds on the bottom of their feet.
Mm.
Very common. There's also environmental and management challenges. So someone decides, oh, I'm going to keep chickens in my backyard. It just sounds so great. And
Right.
but what they don't consider is they have to safeguard those hens from predators.
Right.
There's predators on the ground, there's predators overhead,
Mhm.
above them. Often the hens are killed or just severely injured by predators,
Right.
and you don't know until it's too late.
Right.
Until a predator has gotten into your coop and has killed all of your hens. You don't even realize.
Right.
Waste management is a problem. Many of the issues that affect the hens in backyard coops, it does come from the need to just continually keep the coop clean,
Mhm.
changing out, the straw or whatever bedding you're using. People don't realize
Right.
all of the investment, the time, the effort that goes into keeping the chickens as healthy as possible.
Right.
And then also, we mentioned that the stress from the weather, many of these backyard coops, they're not climate controlled.
Right.
The chickens aren't protected from frostbite, they're not
Mm.
protected from heat stress, and they're very vulnerable. So often, the hens do suffer from, these extremes in weather conditions.
Right.
And then also thinking about like the factors that impact just humans. So chickens, I don't know if people have heard, but when chickens lay eggs, they're very, very noisy.
Mhm.
Um, if by chance you end up with a rooster, which can happen, the sexing process isn't completely, perfected. So often, if you are buying your chickens or your hens through mail order or even the farm supply stores, you may end up with a little baby rooster. You aren't going to know until they start crowing and not laying eggs. So
Right.
you could end up with a rooster in your flock. And then also some of the other concerns is, there are zoonotic diseases that can be transferred from hens to humans who are caring for them. They can be bacterial infections, they can be viral infections, even, avian flu, for example. So there are just so many considerations when
Right.
people
Lack of
jump into this.
right.
Yep.
They don't know what they're doing. Just like when people buy other animals, right? But there's lack of veterinary care because a lot of veterinary offices do not deal with chickens. I know you have some information on that.
Yeah.
And abandonment
Yep.
because people get in
Absolutely.
over their head and then they just drop these chickens anywhere, right? Or
Yeah.
try to sell them on Craigslist or something
Yeah.
to just dispose of them out of their lives because they've took on too much. So
Yeah.
again, the animal loses.
Always,
Mm.
always the animal losing. And, and we do. I know you and I have discussed this. Like, I don't n- I don't look at the people who have the hens in their backyard for egg production. I look at them. I don't I don't wanna say that I'm judging because
Right,
they're not informed. To your
right,
point, they're not informed. It's
right,
just like you said, buying a dog or buying an animal in a pet store. Pet store's not telling them, "Oh, well, this is a lifetime commitment. Oh, you do know that veterinary cost is gonna be so high.
right,
Oh, you do know that there's, like, specific care needs that
mhm,
you're not even equipped for." So it's the same thing.
right,
People are jumping into this, and they don't realize what they're getting themselves into.
right,
So, the real costs of backyard egg production, as you just mentioned, there are so many hens and roosters that are
mm,
being surrendered either to shelters, rescues, and farmed animal sanctuaries. If you are following farmed animal sanctuaries, you see that so many of them have closed intake because
right,
they cannot, we can't rescue ourselves out of this. We cannot.
right,
And so it is just so unfair to the rescues and shelters and, the sanctuaries to, oh, you've got to help me. You've got to take this chicken because
right,
I'm in over my head. No. What I also found is that, sadly, roosters make up a large number of, surrenders
mhm,
to, sanctuaries or abandoned. So many
right,
chickens or hens and roosters are just abandoned, especially, I just as a quick aside, my son and, his, partner live in, Philadelphia,
mm,
and they were actually walking their dog, and a little hen walked up to them, and she basically self-surrendered,
oh,
she came from a backyard
right,
chicken, e producers
right,
in the city, and basically that backyard or wherever they were keeping them basically was done they were done with them, and so they let them go in the city.
right,
So my son and his partner did rescue a little hen, but the thing is, so it's, they're surrendered, they're abandoned, or even worse, they're killed. I
right,
mean, there are no retirement homes other than, thank goodness, for farmed animal sanctuaries, micro sanctuaries. There's no retirement homes for hens once they stop laying.
right,
So that is the sad reality that, the hens still suffer, whether they're in a factory farm or they're in a backyard setting, they are still suffering.
right,
We can't stop that. As we mentioned, the, backyard communities, I even found, a, community online where they're
mm,
so desperate for insight into how to care for chickens or hens
right,
in their backyards, because avian vet care is not readily available. It's also
mhm,
highly expensive. It could be cost prohibitive. So they
right,
turn to each other for advice, do it yourself vet care. And
mhm,
again, not faulting these individuals, but at the end of the day,
right,
the hens are suffering.
right.
So,
Education is key here. Don't
it
do it.
is key. It is
Just
key.
like when we educate for rabbits, they're a 10-year commitment. They're not an Easter gift. It's the same thing. And I know
Same
chicks
thing.
are sometimes given as Easter gifts as well.
Yeah, it's the
But
same thing.
yeah.
So to really, like, in starting to wrap this up,
Mm,
so looking at what are the similarities between commercial egg producers and backyard egg producers.
Right.
Both prioritize egg production.
Right.
You would not be keeping hens in your backyard if you didn't want them for the eggs that they're producing.
Right.
To maintain consistent production, older hens must be replaced by younger hens. We've already talked about that by 12 months to 18 months, that hen, she's already peaked her egg production. She
Right.
now will start to decline the number of eggs that she'll produce. So what are you going to do? Are you going to keep hens that aren't producing eggs, or are you going to get rid of them?
Right.
It's the same issue.
Right.
Both backyard and commercial egg producers, they see roosters as byproducts. Roosters cannot produce eggs. Roosters are often neglected, abandoned, or killed. And we have to remind ourselves that the hens come from the same hatcheries that support male chick killing.
Right.
And then we also have to consider that both the commercial egg and the backyard egg producers, when hens cease to lay eggs, the cost of their upkeep becomes a detriment. With limited or no access to avian vet care, hens suffer from untreated or undertreated health issues. Hens who no longer meet egg production quotas are routinely killed.
Right.
And so, when we look at this from the ethical aspects of it, backyard egg production,
Right.
it reduces, like factory farming, it reduces the hens to units of production. It can't get any more cold and calculating than that.
Right.
A hen's value is viewed solely through the lens of how many eggs she can produce. It also supports, whether it's commercial or backyard, you're still supporting animal exploitation.
Right.
Hens are a product of selective breeding that forces them to lay far more eggs than a wild chicken would naturally produce. The consumer benefits from a system that induces hens to undergo unnatural reproductive processes. And it also, by keeping hens in your backyard for egg production, we are perpetuating the humane myth,
Right.
creating a false sense of ethical consumption. And this, to me, like when I think about like just summarizing all of this, consuming eggs from any source supports a practice that is fundamentally rooted in exploitation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And are there vegans, do you think, that are okay with backyard chickens or that keep chickens? Is there like a subset of, um, I've heard like some philosophical like conversations, like, well, my neighbor has eggs and he eats them and I'm okay with that because they're in the backyard. But as you educated us all today, that they still come from that same system. It's still supporting that factory farm system, that exploitation.
That is such a great question, Nicole. And I will share that I have had conversations in the past with vegans. I mean, people, I truly respect, but that they were defending backyard egg production. And I was taken aback. It wasn't, one or two people. It was actually a number of them. Because they said like, oh, but look, look, they're kept in the backyard and look how, they're allowed to go out in the backyard and just forage and,
Right.
and I'm like, no,
No.
it's all the same system
Right.
of exploitation. You are keeping that system going. You are
Absolutely.
supporting that system of animal exploitation, of violence, because
Yes.
remember that they all end up
Right.
either dead because of all the health issues, or dead because of, predators, etc.,
Right.
or dead because they can no longer produce eggs and they are
Right.
sent to slaughter or they are killed.
Mhm.
So, no, it's
Right.
all the same. And that's where we just have to just stop normalizing looking at chickens as a food source or
Right.
any animals as a food source
Mhm.
for humans.
And it's why this is so important and why I wanted you to have come on the podcast, because I think it's such a I think it's an important topic that people don't really think about. They think, well, they're probably okay in the backyard, or my neighbor, and they look like they take good care of them. And I just think that even vegans can romanticize some of that too. Oh, well, they're okay, but not thinking about where they're coming from
Yeah.
and where they're going and what happens when they stop producing eggs and they're going to get new chickens. Are you paying attention to the neighbor? Are those the same chickens that
Yeah.
they've had for the past 7 years they've been doing this?
Yeah.
Probably not. There are new chickens involved. And what are they doing with the other chickens? Are they abandoning them? Are they selling them online or killing them or what? They're not going to
Yeah.
tell you what they're
Yeah.
doing.
They're not. They're
No.
not gonna tell us. And, and for us, and thankfully as, vegans, we have stopped looking at animals as a source for food for
Right.
humans. But, we do for our non-vegan listeners that we have to look at, chickens are sentient beings.
Mhm.
And change the paradigm that they
Right.
are not food sources for humans in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
Even though you might think of a chicken used or a hen used for egg production, oh, well, we're not eating her flesh.
Right.
We're using her to produce something for our consumption.
Right.
So we are
And what happens
essentially,
to her in the process?
exactly,
Right. Right.
exactly. Choosing to consume eggs from chickens from any source, so commercial egg
Mhm.
production or backyard, we are validating their suffering.
Mhm.
It requires their suffering. And we are either indirectly or directly
Right.
continuing their suffering.
Right.
Chickens may not grasp the fact that they were intentionally brought into a highly exploitative system by humans for humans' benefit,
Mhm.
but we do.
Right.
Hens may not realize that the fertilized egg from which they came resulted from harsh, unnatural confinement and forced breeding, but we do.
Mhm.
Hens may not know that every single life lost due to the violent system is factored into the cost of every egg consumed, but we do.
Mhm.
And so once we know, we it's incumbent upon us to do better. And
Absolutely.
so we can do better.
Mhm.
And, we know, Nicole, that we have to start by eliminating eggs from our diets. It
Right.
is that straightforward, and
Mhm.
we can do it. And we
Yeah.
do it as vegans. We do it. But
Right.
I had a vegan bakery. It's
it's
easy. You do
easier.
not
It's
need
so
eggs
easy.
to bake anything. You can make virtually everything without eggs. It's not necessary.
Yeah. And there's so many alternatives out
Mhm.
there and so many resources available to us. And we have choices. The
Right.
hens do not.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So we can do better. And that's what we must do better.
Mhm.
So at the end of your talk in at Bucks County Community College, you talked about some of those chickens that you had
Mhm.
that were really near and dear to your heart. So can you share something about that with us?
Yes, absolutely. And so a very dear friend of mine, and she's a animal rights activist. She's vegan. She and her husband, um, through the goodness of their hearts, they opened their home to rescue chickens. Just a small, small little um, family. I'm not going to say flock. They're a
Mhm.
family
Yeah.
of hens and a couple of roosters. And through this, actually, some of them she and I had rescued together. And what I have experienced, through her and her husband's generosity is knowing them, knowing these individuals. I had mentioned the little hen that walked up to my son and his partner in Philadelphia, and her name was Franny.
Aw.
My son and his girlfriend said, they named her.
Yeah.
And so my dear friend said, yes, Suzanne, if you can quarantine Franny for a couple weeks, then I will welcome her into our family. And so we did. My husband and I had Franny here.
Oh.
And from that experience, like I just absolutely grew to love her. And I actually even considered, I said to my friend, if it doesn't work out, like if your chicken family doesn't accept her, my husband and I were going to keep her. That's not an ideal situation for a hen. They really do, as they are prey animals, they do feel comfort and, in community. So it's best for them to be with other hens. But we grew to love her, as well as the other chickens, Juniper, Daisy, Rose, Violet, Petunia, and Blossom. They were all rescued from, animal agriculture, from egg industry, some commercial, some backyard. And the sad reality is that my friend who opened her home to them, she actually took them for expert avian veterinary care, gave them absolutely everything possible to help them live, um, to the peak of their, health and well-being. And yet, despite everything that she and her husband did, they all died as a result of either reproductive cancers, lymphomas, just, genetic predisposition that modern medicine can't change. We can't change even through nutrition.
Right.
So the sad reality is, these animals, these hens, yes, they were rescued, but they still ended up dying of the same, conditions that, because of selective breeding, that all the hens are, predisposed to, sadly. So I did a collage of their photos, and I did close with just a little, just some thoughts. And I called it, "We Will Never Forget You." Their lives mattered to them. Their lives mattered to their family and friends. Their lives mattered to me. Their lives should matter to all of us. I am vegan for them and for all animals.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're
much
so welcome.
for doing a deep dive into this and using this to educate everybody. Everyone needs to hear this. People that are eating eggs, people that aren't vegan yet, people that are vegan. I learned a lot from it. It's something that really needs to be said, especially, like I said, the eggs are in the news, right? You can't, the egg price, people complain about egg prices and they can't get eggs and all of that. And people need to know it needs to be talked about and out there in the public. So thank you so much. And those chickens were the lucky ones, even for a short period of time, to be loved by people, and your friend and you and everyone else around them, even though. So let's talk about a little bit about Pennsylvania Voters for Animals before we go, because you guys have been doing great work in a short period of time. And I know you recently had a victory, so I'd like to talk about that really quick.
Sure.
And
Nicole, and thank you. I mean, like your platform for, for my organization, for the hens, most importantly, for all of the animals, the fact that you're giving us an opportunity to share, just what we know, to help inform others, to be a voice for the animals. I mean, we always say, I don't like to use the term that, animals are voiceless, because they're not.
Right.
We just don't listen. And so what you're doing is you're giving a platform for us to speak in behalf of the animals. And I truly appreciate everything you're doing. Groups like yours, it inspired me to actually work to develop Pennsylvania Voters for Animals. I was so fortunate to find other individuals who were on board. And so we worked to, form Pennsylvania Voters for Animals. We are a 501c4 nonprofit based in Pennsylvania. And just quickly, most of us know a 501c3. We are actually a 501c4. And what that means is, according to the IRS, we are a social welfare organization. We are tax exempt as 501c3 nonprofit. But what we can do is we can actually lobby or advocate for stronger legislation. So for us, our focus is to lobby or advocate for stronger animal protection legislation across Pennsylvania. That's our mission. Our vision really is to end animal exploitation. Like we love to see and hope to see the end. Like,
and I love that you lead with the end and not to make things better or welfare. It's the end. And I think that's you have to educate with that, and you have to move forward and take action with ending these industries that exploit animals. And I know you have a list of priority.
Yeah. We have 6 initiatives. But you had asked about this recent, win for the animals, we'll say. So our number one initiative that we're really focusing on, because we are new, we are a small collective of people who truly care about animals and want to make a difference. But our number one priority is to end the sale of all animals in retail pet stores. And, through our work, through our experiences collectively, individually, we realize that, my goodness, so much focus is put on ending the sale of puppies because everyone knows about puppy mills, or ending the sale of, dogs, cats, maybe dogs, cats, rabbits. What we don't realize and need to realize is every single species of animals sold in a pet store is sourced from commercial breeding operations or commercial breeding mills. Every single species, so the reptiles, the amphibians, birds, fishes, all mammals,
the same.
small mammals, it's all the same. It's all the same. As you mentioned earlier,
puppy mills and chickens.
We thought of the chickens.
Same things.
It's the same thing. So we asked ourselves, how can we only advocate for a few and not all? They're all suffering. So
I love that about you. I love that about you and your organization. I love that.
So we said, we've got to do this. We've got to be the voice, and we've got to use our votes to drive this change. So our number one initiative for the next year or two is to advocate, to lobby for stronger animal protection with a keen focus on ending the sale of all animals in retail pet stores. So we said, you know what, let's start at the local level. Let's start a grassroots movement across Pennsylvania. And so we looked at, some of the municipalities in this area, and we went back to the city of Easton, who had enacted a dog, cat, rabbit, and guinea pig, which is pretty remarkable. That they included guinea pigs back in 2023. And so we went back to them and we said, we would like you to consider adding all mammals, all reptiles, all amphibians, all birds, and all fishes in your ordinance. So essentially, taking your ordinance that you have and including more animals.
Right.
It's that straightforward.
Right.
So,
The logical
we
conclusion, right?
it's a
All
very
animals,
logical
right?
conclusion. And so that this is like another whole podcast, so I won't get into
Yeah.
that because it was an eye opener for me because it
Right.
was really the first I've ever done.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Cheryl Petrillo, who's on our board, she actually spearheaded the
Mm.
initial city ordinance, so she's had the experience. But we were successful in, the city council voted 6-1 on expanding their ordinance to include mammals, reptiles, amphibians, birds. They did strip out fishes.
Mm.
And again, that's another whole a
Right.
different podcast.
But this is huge. It's a huge win.
It's a historic win in
And
Pennsylvania.
this sets the stage for more and more of these.
Absolutely, Nicole. And, considering that Pennsylvania does not have a state level pet sales ban yet,
Mm.
there is a bill that has been introduced. It's House Bill 1816. It's called Victoria's Law. And if and when, I'll say when, passed, it will ban the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits in retail pet stores in Pennsylvania. So that is a start. It's not what we hope for, but it is
Right.
a start. So we do feel we will continue to advocate for these expanded ordinances across Pennsylvania, and we are actively pursuing that. So definitely more to come. We're just getting started.
Awesome.
But as you said, for us, we are a small group, but we said, there's plenty of groups out there that are advocating for animal welfare. So, getting rid of cages or bigger cages, et cetera.
Right. Which we know doesn't
That's
really
not
do
us.
anything. Right.
That's not
Right.
us. Like
Right.
when we work on something, we want it to be we're ending animal cruelty.
Right. Ending the industries that exploit
Yeah.
these animals. Well, thank you so much. And we will have you back, I'm sure, to talk more about that and grassroots activism and things like that. Because it's so important. But how can people get involved with your organization, with Pennsylvania Voters for Animals?
Oh, thank you
So-
for asking that because I do
Yes.
such a bad job promoting us.
No, you don't. You just talked about great things that
Well,
you do in your mission.
we always say, first and foremost, our stakeholders, Pennsylvania Voters for Animals, our stakeholders are the animals.
I love
So
that.
that's always my focus.
Right.
is
We
the
always say we're
animals.
animal forward here with the podcast. It's like, I'm not going to read bios forever. I'll throw it in the show notes. We're talking about the animals that need us. Right.
So we actually have a website. So PAVotersForAnimals.org.
Okay.
You can visit us. You can see our team. You can see our our initiatives, and you can sign up for alerts, and you can also sign up to volunteer. We actually, our board is comprised of all vegans, but we are open to everyone. We want to
Right.
welcome everyone because we always say, if you care about animals, if you
Right.
want to make change for animals, you have a seat at our table. So
Right.
our board is vegan. However, we do welcome anyone to join us to help us make a difference for
That's
animals.
great.
We're also
social
on
media.
Facebook.
Yes.
We're on Facebook. We're on
Okay, good.
Instagram.
Good.
So you can definitely find us, and you can email us at info@pavotersforanimals.org.
Okay.
I do manage the email. I do, the website. So
We'll get you.
You'll get me.
He'll get you. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. Last week, Patrick was on the podcast. We were talking about horse racing wrongs, and we were talking about how, people, when you bring awareness to people for one animal, they will become vegan eventually. So when people come to horse racing protests and they weren't vegan, and they became vegan shortly after because they just really learned about this one animal, and then they brought it to that logical conclusion, right, to include all animals. So it's so important, everyone listening, if you want to start a group, make sure you allow everybody to come to your events. Also, Suzanne is in Pennsylvania, but anyone outside of Pennsylvania, watch what they're doing and look and be inspired, because you could do this too. Anybody can, grab a few people together and do this. And it's just grassroots activism and just really, doing it for the animals. So I like to empower everyone with that everybody can do something every single day for animals. So, okay, so we're at the end, and I just want to do something new and a little bit of fun, because we talk about really sad issues, right? So we're going to try something new. And I used to ask in the first season, what did we do for fun to avoid burnout? But I thought we'd do something a little bit different. So I have a couple rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to give me an answer right away. It's just a few, but it's so people get to know our guests and that we're like normal people too, right? So we're not like a lot of people think we're just these superheroes. They can't do what we do, but we're empowering everybody that we can all be a voice for the animals and create change. So, okay, question number 1. What's your favorite food? Vegan, of course. But
anything vegan, of course, yes. But anything Italian has to be.
Italian.
Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
pasta,
I like
anything.
that. Pasta.
Yeah.
That's me too,
Mhm.
pasta. What's your least favorite food?
Onions.
Onions. Oh, that's an interesting one. Like mine is mushrooms, but I'll eat a little bit of mushrooms, but not a lot. And I like people that aren't vegan yet to know that you don't have to like every vegetable, so that's why I asked that question. Favorite animal? I know this is hard.
Oh, this is so hard.
It's
Oh my
hard, but is
God.
there one animal? I remember we were on Kathy Stevens' podcast years ago, and I think she asked a question similar, and she said, is there one animal that speaks to you? Like, and for me, it started out with elephants and then cows. And I remember Kathy saying, oh, you like the big guys, don't you?
Yeah.
And every time I see a cow, I just like lose it, like at a sanctuary or something. And
Yeah.
there
I
one
have to
animal?
say, right off, as you're saying, right off the top of my head, I'd have to say, sheep.
Sheep.
Yeah, I just
You just connect.
not too long ago rescued a little lamb, and there's just something unbelievably just
Right.
they connect. But but I love everybody. But yeah,
We love
yeah,
all animals the
yeah.
same, but okay, guilty pleasure, show, movie, books, or anything.
Oh my
What's your
gosh,
favorite movie?
anything with aliens in them.
Oh, you love this. I love that. I love it. You're so honest with these questions. I love it. You're not overthinking it. I love it. Okay, so one, and then the last one is, what's one small action people can do today to help animals?
Stop eating them.
Stop eating them. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Stop. Just stop. Please.
Yes. Think of them all just like we think of each other. Hopefully we're nice to each other, but be kind to animals. Thank you so much for joining me, Suzanne. Oh my gosh, this was such a great time. I thank you so much for all the work you did on exposing all the cruelty in the egg industry, and then the cruelty that just spills over into backyard chickens, and how it's just not any better. And it's so educating and so eye-opening. So thank you so much. And thank you to all our listeners for listening. Thank you for your support. And remember, be a voice for the animals every chance you get. Thank you.